Beat 2, 3, 4. Welcome back, Dylan Butler, MSG Varsity.
What's up, bud?
It's been a while. Where are you in your high school basketballness right now? Are you you still in your region play? Are you in playoffs? Where are you right now?
No, still regular season. Getting towards the end. Usually March is the playoff month. So late regular season, and then they go into basically kind of like in the Catholic League in New York City. They do easiest way to me to describe it is like conference tournaments to set up the seeding then for the intersectional playoffs. So
okay, so how has it gone so far for you?
Busy. I mean, like it's I just finished a stretch of, and actually we threw in a couple of hockey games in there as well.
There you go.
Of 5 games in 7 days.
Man.
Yeah.
Good work.
I went Sunday basketball, Monday hockey, Tuesday basketball, Friday hockey, Sunday basketball.
Man, nice work.
Thanks.
And to start hour number 2, Jarrett Smith joining us as well to bring the conversation to Dylan. We were ending hour number 1, Dylan, with the conversation about Wrexham.
Yeah.
And where folks stand. I know that at some points it can be a bit of a divining rod or a lightning rod when it comes to things. Where do you stand on Dad? The Dad mug is out this week. Well done. Where do you stand on Wrexham as an asset to soccer? What are your thoughts on this whole Wrexham thing that we have with Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds?
Love it. I mean, I was a fan of the show. I'm a fan of anything to advance the sport, and to have more narratives here in the States, right? So watched all the episodes, loved it. Going off to a side tangent here with Wrexham, I wonder, like, so when I think when everybody watched the series, at least if you were watching it like as it was airing, right, like, and not catching the replays now,
right?
We didn't know how. I mean, at least I didn't know how they did, right? Like, I wasn't following during, I guess, the taping because I didn't know that there was this Wrexham show. So everything was new then. And I wonder what that will do maybe to people viewing the show coming up, right? Like, because now everyone's watching and figuring out they know they're, top of the league or right near the top of the league. They know this FA Cup run, right? Like, I wonder if all the kind of spoilers, if you will, like if it'll affect the drama, if you will, of the of the show, or do you because you're going to go in depth and inside the locker room and all that, like, will it just add to it, I guess?
Yeah. And I mean, that's for me, being the lower league degenerate that I am. I enjoy the idea of having something like that on the lower division. But, like I was saying when you came on the air, any owner that views a sports property will pounce on a distressed asset and hopefully invest, make it better, and make it improve. Ryan Reynolds said 10 years he wants to be in the Premier League. So he sees this distressed asset much like any other business. They want to improve on it. They want to build on it, and they want to make it this monolith that can be there to help this community. I'm all for it. I like the show, but I like the idea of what they're doing as well. And the fact that Ryan Reynolds is now apparently this emotional mess now that he's been exposed to the FA Cup, all the better.
Yeah, and I don't, I don't get the Twitter debate and how MLS then comes into it. Like, it's to borrow a cliche, it's apples and oranges. You can like Wrexham and still like MLS, and it's not. There doesn't have to be a conflict there, right? It doesn't have to be a question of where Wrexham is versus MLS teams and why MLS can't get that. So there's no good stories in them. I mean, it's hogwash, right? Like we know there is. There just doesn't happen to be a a Hollywood superstar or two multimillionaires looking to tell that story, right? And maybe that should change. Maybe it will change with Apple TV, right? But I um I mean, even going back, and I think it's still on ESPN Plus. So maybe it's not now because MLS is off there. But the LAFC, the first season, that was awesome, right? Like that was I love any of those inside the team looks and I just saw a thing on Twitter. Apparently, my club Newcastle are doing a
Ooh.
4-part thing for I think on Amazon.
They're doing the All or Nothing series?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Sunderland Till I Die. What a great comedy that is. That is so funny.
Yep, absolutely.
Again, I'm saying it as a Newcastle fan, right? Like I all the heartbreak. It's so funny.
Yeah. Jared Smith for Dylan Butler on a wall pass Wednesday.
Oh no, I'm just enjoying the pettiness here. That makes my day. That is my cup of coffee to start the day. Pettiness toward your rival is healthy for the heart, just like a cup of coffee. Or
Jared, all of the Jared, all of the. Yeah, no, I was gonna say, Jared, it's great because they it starts with, like we're a big club and we're gonna do so well and we're gonna move on up, and then they don't, they go down.
And then funny. They don't, which is the best. Like brevity is the soul of wit ending possible. They're gonna move up, and they don't. The end. Roll the credits. So to your point about the productions of things like LAFC, locally, tied to Atlanta United, the Atlanta Falcons just opened Ticketmaster Studios, which is this really nice internal studio that the Falcons have, where they're running their own broadcast, they're running like podcasts, little shows. They're really stepping up their internal production, and we talked about this last week. That I really hope that it comes to the United side, but that it comes to other teams in MLS, where, especially with Apple TV, they see the opportunity and take the opportunity to produce more expansive and really adventurous content like we saw with the LAFC feature that you're talking about, which was really good. And I hope we do see more of that, even if it's just, the teams running it themselves, that's fine, but give us that content to absorb to kind of build that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, look, some of my favorite things, even switching sports, it's the Hard Knocks, right, on HBO. It's the I don't think they do it anymore, but like it used to be the lead up to the Winter Classic, right?
Yes.
And then they expanded that to the playoffs, right? Where the inside look, the mic'd up players, like, into my veins with that. I love it. Like, it's got more, please. So if the hope, 100% is, now there is a media partner who wants to, who's dying for more content, right, and has the financial capability to bring that to you. So I agree. I would love to see a lot more of that in MLS, and then we will see those stories, right? Like, I mean, we know. We're on the inside of with some of these teams. We know that there's great stories to be told, right? And and the drama, that is week, in and week out, in a very competitive league. So would love to see more of that for sure.
Happy day 8 of MLS season pass for those of you who celebrate so far. And really, and apparently the club content is about as wide ranging as it gets. Some clubs have gone all in, and you're seeing a lot of content from them so far. Some, when it comes to the individual stuff, folks are kind of lagging behind. And since we're talking lagging behind, I want to talk about one of the teams that is there in your footprint, but is not on your side of the river. I want to talk about the team on the other side of the river.
Okay.
That plays over there. If I'm not mistaken, they're unveiling a $70 million training facility in that particular state on the other side of the river.
Correct. Yes.
And you wonder, and this is, I mean, I don't know if I'm the only person, that I know that Jared is, but the only group of folks that want Red Bulls to embrace their New Jerseyness. Yet they continue to not do that to this day, and I think it would help them, I don't know, fill in the occasional seat if they went ahead and embraced their New Jerseyness instead of sitting there and trying to say, New York, New Jersey Red Bulls, still trying to hang on to that kind of stuff. What is up with Red Bulls these days?
Well, I mean, with that point, it's funny. I remember when Red Bull purchased it, and that was part of the conversation, and it was pretty, they were straight on honest about it. They said there's more marketing power with the New York name than there is with the New Jersey name. So obviously the same with the New York Giants, New York Jets, right? They both are in the same boat, and where they have their stadium, their whole operations are in New Jersey, and they're still those New York teams. Now, they were obviously at one point on this side of the Hudson River.
Right.
The Red Bulls never were, even when they were the Metro Stars. They've always been a Jersey team. I guess the Devils are the only ones who are just straight in, we're New Jersey, Jersey proud. So, but you know what? I got to give these guys some credit here, because I've every time that we talk about them in the preseason, it was last year, it was this year, and I've said, no news, right? Crickets, nothing.
Yeah.
And they've done some business, man. They've done some work. They get a club record signing, a DP, right? Like, these are things. Those two words, the Red Bull fans are like, what? Huh? What are those things?
Who are these Red Bulls that you speak of?
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's funny, because I never would have thought at this point of the preseason that they've had a more, I don't know, complete or busy, or I should say a busier preseason than this team on this side of the river, right? Where there's been so many outward moves for NYCFC and very little coming in. So good on the Red Bulls getting some of their business done. Obviously it remains to be seen sort of how these pieces fit. Probably still need to do a little bit more work on the defensive side of things, right? Like, you need to, I don't know, you don't need a like for like necessarily for Aaron Long, but you do need help on that in that position. But like they're getting some work done, which hasn't happened in the last few preseasons, and spending money to do so.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Jarrett, what else is on your mind with Dylan this morning?
So, because you're up in the area, I feel like I can ask you this. With the abrupt departure, and admittedly from my perspective, I think our perspective, mine and John's, the confusing departure of Jesse Marsh. It looks like Chris Armas might be the interim going into this game. Which, if Chris Armas beats Manchester United, Ralph Ragnick might gain 20 years of life just from that experience. Just through some form of osmosis. But he continues to get a lot of criticism from people, and it's from like this side of the Atlantic and the other side. And like, I wanted to get your take on Armas, because I don't think I ever heard a crossword about him. People seem to genuinely like him as a guy, and he's been on two staffs with Ragnick and now with Marsh, of guys who are really disciples of that style. And it seems like he's. I guess I don't get where all the vitriol comes from with him.
Yeah, I mean, well, to start, on the other side of the Atlantic, it's because he's American, right? Like, that's always going to be the case.
Absolutely.
So that part you understand. On this side of things, like I've always look, I've butted heads with Red Bulls fans about this for years, and I didn't think he follows up Jesse Marsh. He actually completes a Supporter Shield season, right? Because Jesse left, I think, in July of that season. And then Chris follows up. I think part of the problem is he made and we've talked about it. I've talked about it with Jason, a bunch of times as well when I was on the show with him and you guys. Like, he made one tactical move, which and it was against Atlanta, right? In that Eastern Conference final, which like you get, right? Like they were all in and pressing, um and Tata decided to play long ball out of the back. And like, so think about it, right? Like, why then are you going to press the center backs if they're just going to play a long ball? And then, you got to battle for 50-50 in the midfield. So he stepped away from that and changed a little bit of the tactic. And so the move was the right move. The players didn't execute that move, but he was seen to be the villain because he changed the tactics in the biggest games, right? So Red Bull lose that, obviously. Atlanta go on, they win MLS Cup. So right there, he was the villain for Red Bulls fans. Continued to be so. He goes to Toronto. I don't think he really got a fair shake there, right? I mean, they played the first. I don't think he never played a game at BMO Field. Everything was in Florida with the COVID restrictions. And actually, one criticism I will say about him in this was he was looking to have Toronto play in that same style, and that was an older Toronto team. They had kind of set in their ways and how they play, and it just wasn't a good marriage, right? So, what I will say too is he is incredibly detail oriented. He's a great guy, like super nice guy. That's what Jared was saying too. Like, you don't really hear the people who deal with him a lot. Not only are they not criticizing him, they're singing his praises. I don't know where the opportunity has to be for him to get a long run out and prove himself. And who knows, right? Maybe at the end of the day, he's not meant to be a manager. Maybe he's just a great assistant coach. There's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, I mean, that's the kind of talk there about Armas, but I think a lot of the criticism, unfortunately for him, has been unfair.
1-8-2 in his time in Toronto, and it was 12 minus 7, 5 months and 3 days on the job. It was a 7-1 loss to DC United on July 4th. So 1-8-2 for Chris Armas. And yeah, we got into the discussion about ones and twos. You could have guys who are some of the best twos on the planet. Defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, line coach, whatever. But the second that they get the head coaching job, it is just not them. And we see it all the time. And there's nothing wrong with being one of the best number twos around, regardless of what sport we're talking about here.
Yeah. And generally too, like a lot of times you're the good cop, right? It's the bad cop. So you're the guy that, if the head coach is crushing a guy, right, you're the guy who puts your arm around them and you walk him back to the facility and you talk him down from the ledge. Like the number two is generally the good cop in that. And then it's hard then to go from good cop. Now you got to be the bad cop, right? Like, or, you remain the good cop and you want to be this player manager, but if it doesn't work out, then when you got to be hard, like it comes across as not authentic. So it's not the easiest move to go from assistant to head coach.
No. And when it comes to the life of the American manager in the Premier League, I'll just go ahead and say the Premier League right now. American soccer fans are never going to hear the end of it, are they?
No, I don't. I don't know who would. I thought it would be Jesse because of the other steps that he took, right? Like with Salzburg and Leipzig and doing well in the Champions League. And I thought all that other experience would lead to a longer employment in the EPL. But now you go from Bradley to Jesse. Like I don't even know if you're another like, I don't know, I feel like a Jim Curtin, like, do you even want to try to, I mean, I guess you want to challenge yourself. You're always looking for challenges, but the cards are so stacked against you. I guess unless you're Ted Lasso, it's
Wow.
it's impossible.
Jarrett, go for it.
Yeah, and that's and that's, it's hard to bring that to reality from what we want to see happen, where we see the American coach win over the British press, and it just hasn't seemed to happen. So it was confusing for us with Jesse, because you give him the window, and then you pull the plug on it right after the window. Like, whoever you bring in, like, you're just going to try and rescue this, but they're not going to get a window to try and fix this. It just seemed so weird. And
they brought in the players like that he wanted, that Jesse wanted, that fit his style, right? So yeah, that's crazy.
It was so weird. And I guess to shift it, I guess, to his future. I mean, we were talking about this, after it happened. I don't know what the spot would be, but it feels like Jesse could land back in the States at some point and continue coaching here if he want. I don't know if he would want to stay and try his hand in Europe more, or if he'd want to come back here. I know people are already clamoring for him to be part of that national team discussion. I mean, it feels like there's he's going to have opportunity somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've always said, man, I feel like this has been I've been touting him as, I mean, I'm not alone, but I've been touting him as like the next national team manager. I think it was early on in qualifiers, right? Like, weren't we talking about, well, if Berhalter doesn't beat El Salvador or whatever it is, like, and I've always thought he would be the next guy. And at the time too, there was like, do you want to leave Leeds and the EPL? And, now he doesn't have that concern, obviously. So I think he'd be a good choice. I think he'd be the best choice for the U.S. men's national team, especially considering obviously the ties that he already has with, some of the key players for that team. And I think there's enough of a run up too to the World Cup that, say it doesn't work in 2 years, right? Like, and I don't know what, I don't know, you don't win the Gold Cup or whatever it might be. If it doesn't work in 2 years, you would still at least have a 2-year run up to the World Cup for another manager, right? Like, it's not ideal, but I think he can just maybe rest right now, and hopefully, the U.S. Soccer gets their stuff together and gets a sporting director, and maybe, he's got a few months off, and in the summer he's hired, right? Like, I think again, he'd be an ideal choice. And interesting too that we've heard some murmurings that not that he was putting his hat in the ring, but he's just so honest, that Jim Curtin was even saying, right, like, about being an assistant coach for that. And how about that tandem, right? Like, Marsh and Curtin, that'd be phenomenal.
Yeah, we played that sound in hour number 1 from the Crack podcast with Gooch and DMB. And yeah, with Jim Curtin, what you get from him is it's unfiltered, and it's just like, okay, I'm going to open the door and I'm going to say what I'm going to say. And and then I thought it was interesting that Curtin said, yeah, even if I'm an assistant, I would be interested in being there for my country. It's rare where you have a guy come out of the blocks and sit there and say, yeah, I mean, I'll even take an assistant's gig with the national team and leave my current gig. That's something rare. I don't think I've ever heard a coach say, yeah, I'll take an assistant's gig for a national side.
You're right. I mean, Lucci was, but not by choice. He was already out of Dallas when he got the assistant coaching job at the national team. So, you're right. But I think it speaks to how important, this next World Cup is, and this cycle is, right? So to not just, do well, but just for the growth of the sport, in in the States, right? So and I you know, and I think Curtin is smart too, right? I mean, I don't. If again you need to make a move, if you move him over a seat, I think a lot of people would be comfortable with that too.
Last question, Jarrett, for Dylan this morning. Yeah, and I guess kind of to shift it back to MLS, because right now we're getting deep into preseason, and really getting close to regular season. I know it's been a lot of talk about LAFC making their moves. Philadelphia looks like they've reloaded, and it kind of feels like Philadelphia set themselves on a revenge tour. Is there any club that's kind of you think might be off people's radar they should keep a really close eye on this year if they want to appear really smart when discussing this with other people?
I'm still intrigued by the Galaxy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Especially because they need to obviously make the moves now, right? So, you know what they do with those winger positions with the DP, but I think that's a team that that could make some noise as well. I think Portland is setting themselves up to be a really strong team this year. You know, not that they're sort of like they're probably not an off the radar team because I think they're always in the mix. I'm intrigued by Toronto. You know, like they get one of the biggest free agent of signings available, right? And Sean Johnson.
Yeah.
They get Matt Hedges. They still do need more help, obviously in the back, but
yes,
a full year with the Italians as well. I think that they're a team too that could make some noise. And then you know, with the coaching change, I thought the Crew the last couple of years have woefully underperformed. So now with Wilfred Nancy there, does that change things, right? Like they're another team I think I'm eyeballing, and it's not because I'm on with you guys, but you know, Atlanta I think is another team too that's super intriguing. Obviously, you know, the search for the number 9 is still there. Just throwing this out there, you wonder a little bit. I don't think that they would agree to terms, at least in the term part of it. But I almost wonder if like a Kai Kamara, who's said he wants to be traded out of Montreal.
But he's 100% with them right now.
If yes, if kicking the tires there might not, you know, get something at least in the as a stopgap perhaps. But again, I think he's looking for term. I don't see how you would sign a 38-year-old striker to 4 years.
Yeah.
So even though he's been so productive, you know, I think a 2-year deal is probably the best you're going to get if you're Kai Kamara. But yeah, no, I think Atlanta as well is another team to always interesting in Atlanta.
No doubt about it. And we'll keep talking about things as we get closer to the beginning of the regular season. What's going on with you right now with MLSsoccer.com, OSDB, and MSG Varsity?
No, that's old school. That's MSG Varsity is my old stomping grounds. Varsity Media.
Varsity Media, thank you.
Yeah, no, it's all good. So OSDB, we just came out with what did I put out this week?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. What did you put out?
I know. It's all the preseason content is flying around my head. I did storylines, intriguing storylines. Like will an MLS team win CCL again? Will this year? Will LAFC repeat? Who will be the next big outbound transfer? Things like that. So that'll be that's on OSDB now, and we're going to start the conference previews coming up the next 2 Mondays leading up to the start of the season. Varsity Media, I've got basketball on Friday and Sunday. Cardinal Hayes, St. Raymond's on Friday night. Cardinal Hayes, St. Francis Prep on Sunday. Cardinal Hayes, by the way, has Ian Jackson, who just committed to North Carolina, and Elijah Moore, who just committed to Syracuse. So a couple of big-time players there for Hayes. So if you're a fan of either of those two teams, you can go to Varsity Media's YouTube page to check out those games.
All right. Will is asking, who's the big New Jersey basketball power now that the school that Hurley's dad coached does not exist anymore?
St. Anthony's was that school. And I think right now it's Roselle Catholic, I think, is the top team in Jersey.
Okay, so Roselle Catholic. We'll keep an eye on that. Dylan, thanks again for hanging out with us, and we'll catch back up with you again next Wall Pass Wednesday at 10. We'll go over conference previews, news of the day, anything else that comes to mind. Thanks for hanging out, my friend.
All right, boys.